Hey everyone, I'm Mark de Grasse, and this is the AI Branding Academy podcast where we talk about branding, marketing, content, and AI, trying to find the intersection of all four and usually coming up with a cohesive plans that allow you to prepare your business for the future. Today, I have one of our AI branding partners, Stephanie, for the CEO of Sizzleforce Marketing, and of course, an AI branding certified partner. And today, we're talking about her history, kind of getting into marketing, and what she's doing today to really excel her clients into the future by collecting all of their information through one intense and valuable session. So, welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you, Mark. So glad to be here.
So, I love what you're doing. I see your stuff every day. You're excellent at, posting and promoting, which I love. But I know it wasn't always like this for your marketing agency and your career. So I figured we kind of talk about how you kind of got started into marketing and how you made that big pivot last year or over the last 12 months to really make a big change.
Yeah, for sure. So I have been in marketing my entire career. I started when I was 21 and I am now 51. So very, very soon I'm going to be celebrating my 30th year in
Wow.
marketing industry. So I've been doing this a long time. I started with a degree in journalism. Started This is going to make me sound like a dinosaur, but back then it was pre-internet. I went to work for the newspaper and worked my way up in the newspaper world. And then .com became a word. And I've always been really excited about technology. And as soon as I heard like, ooh, .com, wait, what's this thing? A website? Wait, what's happening? I immediately jumped into a position with Cox Communications. And I
Mm.
helped them launch a huge property that's still around today, but it was bought out by another company. So I helped them launch that first online property, and then people started talking about wireless, right,
Mm.
and wireless apps. And so I jumped to a company that was developing some of the very first apps for phones. And it's hilarious when I think back on it. Like we had one app that would tell you the weather at the ski resorts, and the way that we set it up, you would know it was snowing if little asterisks fell down your
Ah,
screen.
that's cool.
It sounds so silly now, but back then we were all like, oh, wow, right. So I did all of that, and then in 2009 I started my agency, and here we are.
Nice. Well, I know you went through some other certifications and what I've really noticed about you is you're constantly building that knowledge base. And from your history, 30 years of taking on new stuff and new tech and new methodologies. Do you feel pretty prepared for today? Because I know we're facing kind of a new transition into AI and automation that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, actually, I feel extremely well prepared, in part because I'm a partner of the AI Branding Academy.
That's why you're here.
Honestly, Mark, this is going to sound like I'm kissing your behind, but I'm not. It's the honest to God truth. When ChatGPT became all the rage, right? I had looked at AI, like I had looked at Jasper and stuff like, I don't know, a few years before that. I heard about it at Trafficking Conversion.
Mm.
And I had looked at it. I turned my nose up at it, thought it was really lame, not comparable at all, because I had been writing copy for over 2 decades at that point. I'm like, this is stupid. And so I turned my nose up at it. I hear the roar about ChatGPT like everybody else did. And at first, I was just like, oh, that AI thing, I've already looked at it, stupid. Then,
I said the same thing.
yeah, yeah. And then I went into a little bit of a pity party, to tell you the honest truth. Went into a little bit of a pity party, which turned into a lot of a pity party, because I honestly felt like all of a sudden people were like, well, who needs a copywriter? I can use this thing. Right.
Mm.
And I was like, wait a minute, everybody, wait a minute. In February following the launch of ChatGPT, I actually got into a training that you did, Mark.
No.
Um, where you were teaching about how to use AI. And that was the first training that I went through, aside from just stuff I was experimenting with at my office. And you got me super nerding out on all the things. And
Nice.
then after yours, I went into a program that my friend Jeff led. And then I bounced back to your AI Branding Academy. And then very quickly, I found myself in a position of actually teaching
Mm.
AI. I started speaking on stages really quickly thereafter. I was actually, my first talk was to the California Staffing Association. There were about
Wow.
400 people in the audience. And that was my first talk on AI. And that was in April of 2023.
Three. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's an adventure and it's still going on. It's so
Yeah.
funny because 2 years ago, it was kind of the point where I got started too, because I had used it like 4 years ago maybe, and same as you, I was like, this isn't as good as what I could do, not even trying.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I think probably 3 months before that training, I had used ChatGPT again, and I was like, holy crap! Like this is actually it was probably better than it is today back then. I think
Mhm.
today we face a whole bunch of capacity issues, so it hasn't gotten better. But the people who have used it consistently are starting to be able to do a lot more with it. And you, with a journalist background, I've always said that the top AI users will actually be writers because they can convey information and instructions in a way that most people just don't know how to communicate. So it totally makes sense
I
that you were able
agree
to
with
take it on.
you. I agree with that statement.
It's true. I've seen it a ton of. Well, I think like the reason why I do is because I consider myself a writer too, and so I'm like, oh, this is great. Like I could tell it to do a million different things, but it's not easy. I would say it's not like, oh, hey, yeah. And you hear the people who try it the first time, they're like, it's crap, and you're like, uh, maybe you're crap. No.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
It
awesome.
is.
Well, let's touch on the copywriting thing, because I think that's always a big concern. You still have people fighting back against it, saying like, "Oh no, it can never be better than a human." What did you kind of start, or how did you start using AI that made the copywriting, almost as good or at least comparable to what you're able to do?
Yeah. For me, it started with learning how to create AI personas.
Mm,
When I learned how to create personas, it made so much sense to me because the way that I thought of it was, if I were doing another project for a client, I would create a creative brief, right? I would fill in all the information on the creative brief, like who's the audience, what are their pain points, what do they care about, what do they want, what is our offer, yada, 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 right? And when I learned about the AI persona, I was like, wait, this is just doing a creative brief, but feeding
mm,
it to AI. And, I mean, everyone does their creative briefs a little bit differently, but that was kind of how I did mine. And so it made so much sense. And I started feeding the AIs some things that I was learning from other people, and then some things that I just took from my own career experience of, this is going to be an important thing for the AI to know in order to
mm,
generate the results that I want. And it was very obvious very quickly that the more quality information I fed it, the better outputs I would receive.
mm.
And it didn't take long for me to be really, really humbled as a copywriter and say, oh my gosh, that wrote it better than I did. And it only took it like a millisecond.
That's funny because that actually happens to me live. Well, you heard it like today. We did the boot camp, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's such a cool name, like a Trendura or whatever for the brand that we were making up." And I was like, "That's awesome! Like I would totally use that." So no, that's always well, it's like a joy. It's like finding gifts where you're like, "Oh my gosh, I hadn't even thought of that," and then it just came up with it, and I completely agree with it. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, when you really get into it, but it does take time to get into it. And honestly, I think what's going to happen over, the next 6 to 12 months when, Apple Intelligence comes out and all these kind of user side AIs, a lot of that's not going to be necessary. Well, it's still going to be necessary to create good copy and create good content off of AI, but I don't think anybody's going to know how to do it because they're going to be fed the information before they even request it. So I think we are, the last of a type of marketer that's going to be able to manipulate and really understand what we're doing with AI. And then after this, it's going to get too easy, is my opinion. But that's why we're hustling right now, right?
We're awesome. We are awesome, Mark.
Well, let's talk about your onboarding process, because I know you mentioned before the show your get it done days, and I love that concept because honestly, I think because of AI, a lot of people aren't going to trust information they find online as much. I mean, even for me, where I'm very good at spotting AI, now I'm kind of like. You see these news reports come out and you're like, crap, I don't know if this is real. Like, is that
Mhm.
person running? Is that person maybe dead? Who knows? Like
Right?
it's all up in the air. So I really think that the in-person meeting and actually talking to people is going to be growing in importance. And on top of that, like you said, if you don't feed the AI good information, it's not going to give you anything good back. And so information collection is actually taking an even greater priority these days than it did before. So I
Mhm.
figure why don't you kind of walk us through kind of like your onboarding and your get it done days.
Okay, sure. You want me to tell you how this all got started?
Yeah, let's hear the history.
Okay, so the Get It Done Day is a full day of strategic planning and really laying the marketing foundation for a company before we get into hardcore execution and implementation of anything. So this got started because when COVID happened and everything shut down, the world shut down. I had several clients that had been in business for 20, 30, some even longer years.
Wow.
And, I think of one client in particular, and she had a very, very incredibly successful promotional swag company. She got all of her products from China and, produced swag for so many major events that your listeners have heard of and it probably attended. Well, every event got canceled, right? And it was practically like overnight, she was out of business.
Hmm.
And, she'd been doing this for like 30 years to the point that she actually had 2 planes registered in China and they would bring her products to her. That's how established she was.
Wow.
Yeah. So COVID happens, the world shuts down, all the events end. And I'm talking with her on the phone. And just like everybody else, we're all like, what's happening in the world? What are we doing? What's my name? How old am I? Right. And she said, Stephanie, I need to reinvent, but I can't spend months reinventing this. I can't do it. I need money now. Absolutely, I said. Absolutely, I understand completely. Let me put my head down and think about what I can do. And so I started playing with this concept of taking a branding project, for example, that in a pre-COVID world would probably have lasted for 12 to 16 weeks. And what could I do to really compress the amount of time, but get the most essential elements out of it? And I came up with this idea of doing a Get It Done Day. Now, at that time, we still weren't allowed to see people face to face. So it was all done by Zoom. And so I met with her and we spent a full day together on Zoom, 8 hours. And during those 8 hours, we built out a completely new brand for her, which she then turned around and launched like that because that's what she had to do. And because she had 2 planes that were already registered in China, and because she already had relationships with manufacturers in China, she became one of the leading PPP providers.
Hmm.
PPP, what was it called? Remember the gloves, the
Yeah,
gowns, the masks, all the stuff. She switched instead of creating pens and buttons or whatever the swag is. She started manufacturing the gloves, the masks, the hospital gowns, whatnot. She ended up getting a contract with Starbucks, outfitting like every Starbucks with all of that
wow.
equipment for years, right? And she ended up serving all these hospitals that I don't know if you guys remember. there were times when they were like, we don't have enough in the hospitals. We don't have enough for our doctors, and, our patients are getting sicker, and yada, yada. And she was able to solve that need because, again, planes weren't even allowed to leave from China when they were American, right? But because hers were registered in China, whole different story. So,
Wow.
so that is what became possible because, and it all started with this, wow, the world is shut down. Let's compress creating a brand and let's see what we can do on supersonic speed. Okay.
Wow.
So, so the Get It Done Day it's a full day strategy session, and it has evolved since we did it with her the very first time. We have two that we do right now. One of them is really focused on developing a high impact brand that can disrupt an industry, just like she did. Okay. During one day, the strategy session, it can happen face to face. And it's wonderful when it's face to face. But the truth is, we live in a very Zoom friendly world now, and it can save on costs. We serve clients that are, all over America, as well as in other English speaking countries. And sometimes face to face doesn't work out, right? But you can tell if it's Zoom. You can tell right now. This is me.
You still do it.
This is not AI Stephanie talking to you, right?
You never know.
Yeah, right. I know. But we spend a full strategy day working with the client with our brand management team. And it's myself as well as my staff. I bring in experts in corporate branding, marketing, psychology, and brand positioning. And during that day, we go through a process where the first thing we do is we establish your brand pillars. And that is something that I learned in the AI Branding Academy, how to do that. So we follow your process, Mark. And because I'm a partner, I get to white label it. Yay.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah. Then once we've done the brand pillars, we start really digging in deep to their ideal client, right? Because you know who you're talking to. If you're going to ever share a message, it's going to resonate with them. So we're uncovering their preferences, their motivations, their pain points, their fears, all of those things. The next thing we work on is differentiating them, because we all know if your brand doesn't appear to be different in some way, the only thing you have left to compete on is price. And in today's global economy, will always be somebody willing to work for less than an American will, right? Yep. So we do a deep dive on competitive research and figure out how this brand can stand apart in a noisy, crowded world. And then we move into the brand story, because having a compelling brand story, that's how you touch hearts. That's how you build trust. That's how you inspire brand loyalty. And so we will develop a story. And I'm a real big believer on, let's not just share the facts about how a company came to be, but let's talk about the people behind it and their lives. And really getting inside here, because when you get into the hearts, then you capture people at an emotional level, right? And they always say 90% of purchases are based on emotions. The final thing that we do is we prepare what we call the implementation guide. And this is when we walk them through how to bring their new brand to life with a step-by-step guide that integrates their unique value into every marketing material that we're going to suggest that they use, as well as their customer experiences and everything in between. So that's our Get It Done Day.
We have an amazing limited time offer that you won't want to miss. Introducing the Build Your Brand Pillars course from AI Branding Academy, your gateway to mastering both traditional branding and AI-powered marketing strategies. With this course, you'll gain invaluable skills in creating strong brand foundations that stand out in today's competitive market. Perfect for innovation leaders like you. Don't wait. Take advantage of this special offer before it's gone. Head to aibranding.academy.
That's an awesome day. Well, and I love how you kind of access the specialists necessary to do pieces of it. So it's not just like, oh, you're sitting down with one person for one day. Like you could bring in whoever you need to make sure it all gets done. But
Yeah.
I love, even the origin story of having to get it done like now, because a lot of the concepts that I've come up with are really based on that premise. Like, hey, let's not sit around and think about it. Let's not take 3 months or 6 months to go through the process, because by the time you get that done, everybody's exhausted. Nobody
Mhm.
really cares anymore. And now you just lost all that beginning momentum that you could have been used all that energy to like push the thing out sooner. Instead,
Yeah.
it's well, and the thing that I found was that all the extra brainstorming meetings and the review meetings and the draft number 5 meetings, like it doesn't actually add any value to the process, and all it does is just take more time. And so I love
Yeah.
the whole blitz approach, and also how you're kind of incorporating a lot of people don't like to say that marketers do this, but we do a ton of business development. Like we do a ton of like, hey, here's the product. So we become product managers, and then we become basically not like CFOs, but we become business planners, where essentially we're saying, hey, here's how you're going to go to market. Here's the target market you're serving. Here's what they expect. And we're doing all the back and forth like, it already exists. And there's very few other, professions that could actually do that, I would say, without referring to marketing in the first place. So I think that's fantastic. And it is, the best way for you to succeed too. So it's not just about, yes, it is serving the client the best by doing these meetings, but honestly, you're able to get so much more work done because you took the time to do that collection and put the real value in it. So I
Well,
love
and
it.
the cool thing is too, before we get into any execution agreement, because the upsell from the Get It Done Day is a 12-month retainer, right?
Mm,
And that sells for a minimum of 10K a month, right? So it's a nice jump. We charge for this particular Get It Done Day, it's just under 8,000, right? So
mm.
they make an investment in this really powerful day, but then we're not jumping into implementation and execution without the details, without a solid foundation. Because that's one thing I've seen over the 3 decades I've been doing this. The main reason most marketing campaigns fall apart is because they don't have the foundation, right? They
Mm.
jump into execution before even really knowing, well, who are we going after and what do they care about? And how are we going to set ourselves apart? And, these things that seem so basic, but they're so important. It's like building a house on sand, right? If you
Yep.
don't do it, right? So, yeah.
Well, and that's where the branding comes in, because like I say this all the time, so you've heard it a million times, but every impression you make is either taken away from your brand equity or adding to it. And so if you are constantly trying to add, but whatever you're creating is essentially a new brand, which is what I found with a lot of projects. Because when people hire a marketer, it's like, hey, we're getting on to Meta, let's bring in the Meta technician, and that will make up the plan for Meta. And then okay, we need to do email drip campaign for onboarding new customers. Okay, let's bring in the email specialist, and now let's go back and forth, and we're going to come up with a campaign for that. And what ends up happening is these brands end up making like 50 sub brands without even thinking about it. But since there's no cohesion with what they're doing, of course they're not going to do as good as they could, and they're definitely not going to add to brand value because you didn't incorporate the brand in the first place. It's a brand new project. So I love the method. Have you seen a lot of good results with it, like from how you did things
Oh,
before and now?
I mean, awesome. It's amazing being able to get the depth of information that we're able to get in such a short amount of time, and how that launches a whole campaign, not just a whole campaign, sometimes a whole company forward, right? I mean, it is incredible. It became our flagship product, and it's what we're known for. We got a lot of positive reviews all over YouTube talking about the Get It Done Day and how powerful it's been.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, and like I said, I think it's going to become increasingly important as time goes on, and AI just keeps getting better. I mean, it's even at this point, like I said at the beginning, I'm like, I don't know some of the videos I see now where I'm like, maybe it's real, but it might not
Right,
be. And even
right,
that
right.
little tickle of doubt is like, well, I'm just going to completely negate what I learned because I don't know whether it's good or bad. And so I can't really trust it. So yeah, I think you're on the right track. I think you're incorporating. Well, let's talk about this real quick, because I think there's a difference between people who say they use AI, because now everybody says they use AI, it's ubiquitous with just like statements about like, yeah, I'm on the internet. Like, yeah,
Right.
I know.
I eat food. I eat food. I breathe.
Yeah, I breathe air sometimes. We're like, yeah, I know. But with AI, like everybody's just plugging in AI, and they're probably, most companies are probably just saying, yeah, one of the interns uses ChatGPT to write the newsletter or something, and that's our AI application. But if you're really going to do it, you need a systematic process for adding AI into, basically the whole organization. And so, I know the AI branding framework and how we do it, but how have you kind of incorporated kind of the systematic application of AI to your clients?
Yeah. Well, one thing that we do is called the AI matchmaker. And this is where we do an assessment of a company and where are their log jams, right? Where are the gaps that are holding them back? It could be something based on time. It could be based on money. It could be based on just not having the talent. There's a million different things. But we do this assessment to identify, okay, what isn't working as well as it could be working? And then we identify the appropriate AIs that can solve that problem. So we will then share a list of options with them, and then we will give them the option. They can either say, great, thanks so much, we'll take it from here, or they can say, okay, now we got to learn this. Now we got to train our team to use this, and not just, noodle around on it, but really use it to the full capacity. And so we have people on our staff that will actually come in and do the training for their marketing teams. And this is applicable to every company from, the small business that has, maybe $1 million in revenue to enormous corporations. I met with several corporations just last week, and they're a little slower to adopt to AI, I'm finding, but the interest, the need is obviously there, and they're starting to build to it. So that the AI matchmaker program is something that has gotten a lot of favorable results from, because people don't really know. I mean, they know everyone's heard of ChatGPT. It surprises me how many people still have barely touched it, right? Even though they've heard about it. I'm like, really? Yeah.
You're still not doing anything.
And then I don't know if you've found this, Mark, but I find that ChatGPT is synonymous with AI. They think AI is ChatGPT.
Yeah.
All of AI. That's all it is. Yeah. And I'm like, oh no, sweetie. No,
it's in everything.
There's so much more, right? And on the flip side, the people that are more aware of AI's capabilities, they're pretty overwhelmed. There's so many choices. There's new things coming out every day. There's people on stages every day saying, well, you got to use this one. You got to use this one. You got to use this one. And we're all getting shiny object syndrome and completely overwhelmed, and then almost paralyzed because there's too many things that do too many things. And where the heck do I start?
Yep. And it's, it's pretty common though. I think with new tech, it's always like that. And honestly, I think we've really been stagnant for the last like 20 years. Like, yeah, iPhone cameras have gotten better and things are slightly faster, but they're really not that different. And so I think we've all been kind of so used to the way the internet works and the way technology works that we haven't even thought about a change. And you see this with everything. Because remember when, QR codes were invented in like the early 2010s and nobody gave a crap, right? It was like, it was just like NFTs, like, oh yeah, we're so excited. QR codes are going to change the world. And then all of a sudden they just kind of like petered out into just like a regular whatever thing. And then COVID happened and it was all of a sudden like, oh my God, QR codes, you need them on everything.
Right.
Now they are happening. But that was like a 10-year adoption cycle. And a catastrophic event that actually made them switch. And honestly, it might take the same thing for AI to finally be adopted like that, because people still think like, oh no, I need all these people to do all these tasks, and then to manage all these people I need all these managers, and then to manage the
Mhm.
managers I need all these executives, and you're just like, oh crap. Like all of this inability to, well, it's really a capacity issue. Like how much can one person really do by themselves? It's like, oh, well, you could do this much. But now it's like, now, if you know what you're doing with AI, you could 10x. Like the whole 10x thing sounds kind of goofy because it's like, oh yeah, you're 10 times more productive. But I've heard it time and time again, and not just from marketers, but I have a lot of developer friends too. And they'll say like, hey, this project would have taken me 40 hours. I got it done in 2. Like
Yeah.
literally my whole team is bored because
Yeah.
all this stuff. But then it's like, well, there's 2 ways to look at that. You could say like, oh my gosh, you're gonna lose your job, or oh my gosh, you could start doing projects that you never would have dreamed of, that you probably dreamed of, but never really did because you knew the work it would take to actually, bust them out. And honestly, if there was no guaranteed ROI on that project, then you probably get in trouble for even trying. But now you have AI, so just go nuts. So I think it's a dream time for everybody, and all they have to do is start adopting it and practicing like you do. And so there you go. Or just hire Stephanie. That's your other option. You don't have to learn
I like
anything.
that second option better. Yeah.
Well, in that regard, where can people find more about you other than the AI branding website, which we will put your link on this episode for?
Yeah, for sure. So you can find my website is sizzleforce.com. Sizzle like bacon, force like may the force be with you. So sizzleforce.com. I am active on a lot of social media. You can look at a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, but you're going to have to struggle to figure out how my last name is spelled. So good luck.
We'll link that as well.
Okay.
It's a tricky one. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie.
Yeah.
This
Thank
has
you,
been
Mark. This has been fun.
Oh, it's always a ton of fun talking to you. Definitely going to be having you on again. Hopefully get some articles, and the next time you're in town, we'll have to shoot some branding content here at the new studio.
Love it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. This has been the AI Branding Academy podcast, where we talk about branding, marketing, content, and AI all mixed together into a brand new process that's going to drive your business forward. So if you want more of that, please tune in.